I call the meeting of the Finance Committee to order on September 17th, 2025. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Thibodeau. Here. Alderman GOV is here. Alderman Moran. Alderwoman Timmons. Alderman Clemmons. Here. Alderman Clee.
Here.
Mayor Donchis.
Here.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Alderman Moran had called me and told me that he had something he was unable to make the meeting this evening.
And Alderwoman Timmons has an excused absence. The first item is public comment. Is there any member of the public who wants to address any of the agenda items? I don't see anyone. So we'll go to communications. First communication, Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to purchase of one Ford Explorer in the amount not to exceed $67,389 funded from SURF 81 Capital Outlay and Improvements, make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of a 2026 model year Ford Explorer and associated equipment through Grappone Ford and Global Public Safety in the amount not to exceed $67,389. Funding will be through Department 156 Emergency Management Fund, SURF Capital Outlay and Improvements.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to speak now?
Yes, go
Okay,
ahead, Ms.
good.
Marticello, go
All
ahead.
right. I'm Emily Marticello. I'm the Director of Emergency Management. So this is the vehicle for the Office of Emergency Management. I use the vehicle, I take it home. We are actually downsizing the vehicle. So currently I have a pickup truck, which we're downsizing to just about what I need, which I'm going to go with the same vehicle that the police chiefs and fire chiefs have, the Ford Explorer. As it's noted in the letter, it's not an electric vehicle, and I unfortunately couldn't get a hybrid either. I did look into getting a hybrid vehicle. The option was Toyota Highlander, and that was not in the price range, nor I don't think it would reflect great in me driving that around. And the other situation with it is it is an emergency response vehicle. It's upfitted with lights. When I spoke to the upfitters, that was not a vehicle they were familiar with and would have, I think, charged us a pretty penny to upfit beyond what it would normally be. So this is coming in under budget, this vehicle. So right now I get 60 miles a gallon. This is going to get 25, so it's an improvement. And we just don't have a way to do charging. I take the vehicle home because I'm back and forth here all the time for emergencies. So that's why we're going with the same fleet that fire and police have. I'm getting the same exact vehicle actually from Grappone that we've been using them to get those vehicles. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to boiler system replacement in the amount not to exceed $65,000 funded from Capital Projects 81 Capital Outlay and Improvements, I'll make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve the replacement of the boiler heating system at the Nashua Fire Alarm Dispatch Center at 38 Lake Street with Palmer and Sickard in the amount not to exceed $65,000. Funding will be through Department 152 Fire Rescue Fund Capital Projects.
Mr. Pouliot?
Hi, good evening. Adam Pouliot, Assistant Fire Chief. So the boiler has completely failed. The burning chamber has completely cracked. It was discovered at the end of heating season as we started to get elevated readings of carbon monoxide throughout the space. So fortunately, it failed, like I said, end of heating season, so that gave us some time to do some research instead of being an emergency purchase. So we got pricing on two different units. One is an exact replacement, and that's a unit that's about 86% efficient. For a little bit more money, we can get into a high efficiency unit. It's going to be 98% efficient, and it will also allow us to eliminate the gas-fired water heater, and we will have indirect water heating off this boiler. So from an energy
And you've
standpoint,
elected the second alternative, is that?
I'm sorry?
Which one did you?
We chose the high efficiency unit that will do the
98%.
indirect firing of the hot water and also eliminate our gas water heater. So it's been much more efficient. There'll be some significant energy savings.
Okay.
And that's what we want to go with. It's the best bang for our buck, if you will.
Any comments or questions? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
Regard to NPD regulation uniforms and equipment in the amount not to exceed $117,000, funded from General Fund 61 Supplies and Materials. Make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of Police Department uniform clothing through Ben's Uniforms in the amount not to exceed $117,000. Funding will be through Department 150, Police Department, Fund General Fund 61 Supplies and Materials.
Good evening. Pat Hannon, Captain of the Professional Standards Bureau. I oversee the training of the new and current officers, as well as the hiring of the new officers. We are asking for this approval today as we use 2 vendors, Ben's Uniforms and East Coast Outfitters, which you'll see in the next one that we'll go over here, to outfit our new officers with uniforms and equipment. Current officers also use these 2 vendors to replace their uniforms and equipment with their clothing allowance. These 2 vendors are distributors for Blower uniforms, which is the uniform that MPD wears. We're also very careful with who we provide our MPD patches to. We have found these 2 vendors to be trusted partners. We have tried other vendors in the past, found that the communication and service are not as strong as these 2 here.
Sorry.
The reason that we do use 2 vendors is that with the amount of uniforms that we get, we sometimes have a difficult time finding one item or the other, so it gives us flexibility. When we send new recruits to the academy, obviously we're under a deadline there, and that allows us to have that flexibility to go through the 2 vendors. Appreciate your time with this, and if there's any questions, please let me know.
Anyone? Alderman Thibodeau.
I just had a question on the wording in both of these line items, or these 2, these 2 line items. So it says that the officers can procure the uniforms from these vendors as well, but, so I'm not sure how that process works. If
Sure.
we're paying for the uniforms, but then the
Yes.
officers.
So the initial outfit of new officers is on the NPD.
Okay.
That's part of the hiring process. You'll see the list, uniform, shirt, jackets, hat, things of that
Right.
nature, collar brass. Once you get into the patrolman's contract, after a year, you now have a clothing allowance, which is outlined in the contract. With that clothing allowance, they'll use it to replace pants. They're $250 pants. If they get damaged out there in the street or just wear and tear, they use that clothing allowance to go through these 2 vendors to replace those items. That's why it's initially PD cost, and then it's the officer cost after that. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question, sir?
I think so.
Okay.
Although under the clothing allowance, the officer is reimbursed a certain amount per year.
So this is to help offset that reimbursement, is that what you?
No, it's just to show the amount that we'll be using for clothing allowance to purchase items at this vendor. So it's no more money out of the city, unless I'm speaking out of turn, but it is their clothing allowance. We're just showing you that with all the clothing allowance allotted, added up, that's what we're going to be paying these 2
Gotcha.
vendors over the year. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yep, now I get you.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to NPD regulation uniforms and equipment in the amount not to exceed $70,000, funded from General Fund 61 Supplies and Materials, make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve the purchase of Police Department uniforms, clothing through East Coast Emergency Outfitters in the amount not to exceed $70,000. Funding will be through Department 150, Police Department, Fund General Fund 61 Supplies and Materials.
So that's the second vendor that I had mentioned in the previous discussion.
All right, any further questions? All those, in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to Library Plaza Design and Construction Administration Services, Amendment Number 5, in the amount not to exceed $39,684, funded from Capital Improvements, 53 Professional and Technical Services. I'll make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve Amendment Number 5 with Arcadis and expanded scope and excavation in time by 12 weeks beyond the original contract terms in the amount not to exceed $39,684. Funding will be through Department 181, Community Development Fund, Capital Improvements, 53 Professional and Technical Services.
Mr. Sullivan?
Good evening, members of the committee. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director for the City of Nashua, here on behalf of this request to increase the current design contract with Arcadis by an amount of $39,684. The title doesn't necessarily cover it, but I think the description does. The city, through the design process for the library plaza, which we intend to put out to bid over the coming months, went through a more iterative process than we originally anticipated in the scope with Arcadis design. Specifically, what I mean is that we went through several rounds of selecting play equipment and selecting different landscaping and other stormwater elements, more than was anticipated in their original design contract. Part of that was based on the fact that we did additional site investigation on the property. We found out some components of the soil. We had to move some asbestos disposal areas around, and essentially the design process took more effort than we anticipated in the original design contract. To be frank, this amount was a bit unexpected, I have to admit, but ultimately we went through several iterations of how much time Arcadis had spent on that iterative design process, and ultimately we agreed to the $39,684 that you see here. We now have a final set of construction documents. This process is closed, if you will, when it comes to the design itself. We are good to go, but ultimately they did take on this additional time and this additional cost, and so that's why I'm bringing it forward to you this evening. As just a reminder, there are two real components to the Arcadis contract. One is this design process. The second is construction administration. They're actually going to be overseeing the bid document process and ultimately the construction supervision that takes place on site and keeping all the contractors in line. So they'll play a role later in the project, but this is really an increase to the scope in the first phase of the project, that design work. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks may have, but hopefully get your approval on this evening. Thank you.
Alderman Thibodeau.
So if I understand, this is to pay for services rendered.
That is correct, yes. Design services specifically.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. And also this additional monies and so on are because we kept having to change what we wanted or what we, and I understand that and the soil issues and so on, but
Sure.
where some of the changes that we kept changing because of public input, because of aldermanic input, because of library input, anything specific. The reason I'm asking is because I want the public to know that these changes may have happened because we as a body as well as the public kept having input and so on.
So I wasn't going to go into detail about Alderwoman Clay. I think it's necessary to in response to your question. So there are really 6 different components of the delay. Some of the delay was based on very specific play equipment that we wanted to see. And to be frank, we didn't know exactly what we wanted to see until we saw iterations of the design that were presented to us, if I'm being totally honest. And so we sort of gave some early direction in the project, but ultimately when we saw the initial designs, the designs did not satisfy what Director McCormick and myself were looking for. And so we went back, we asked them to scope new design, and to be totally honest, it was a far more iterative process than we originally anticipated because we wanted to get the right equipment. And I feel that we're in a position now where we do have that. The other piece that's interesting here is that Arcadis played a role in the asbestos work planning process with the state of New Hampshire DES in concert with our consultant, Sanborn Head. That ADS work plan took longer than anticipated to get approved through the state of New Hampshire. There were more design adjustments necessary than we originally anticipated. So that was an unexpected piece of the process. Ultimately, we ended up postponing the bid submission because of that. We also ended up postponing the bid submission based on a delay with HUD because the HUD community project funding was delayed for several months. And then the final piece that I'd highlight is that the stormwater system is very complex in this area. We have some outfalls into the river. We have some stormwater that heads into Court Street. That level of complexity was not anticipated in the original scope from Arcadis, and it required more coordination with the city's engineering team than we had originally anticipated. They were fantastic. There was great back and forth, but again, that level of coordination was not anticipated initially. And so all of those pieces together resulted in this additional delay and these additional costs.
Based on all that, I don't think 39,000 is all that much, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yeah, I just have a question as to why this is coming up. Why are we approving this or being asked to approve this after the fact?
Yeah, Alderman Clemmons, that's a great question. So ultimately, the current contract contains enough funding to cover these costs now. the current contract, because it includes additional scope beyond the number that's in, beyond the number just for design services, these monies, they're already in the contract. What will ultimately happen, though, based on the billing that's taken place, is we'll get to a point later in the contract where we have to adjust the construction administration services budget. And I will ultimately come back to you to ask for that adjustment. But really, the overage that exists is on this design side of the project. And so to your question, why is this coming forth when services have already been rendered? To be frank, Arcadis approached us after the fact and said, this has been an additional cost that we did not anticipate. We have expended far more than we anticipated. The city has an option here. You can either choose to not pay us for this work, and we're going to have to do a more direct evaluation of the future of this contract, or we can discuss what those costs were and try to arrive at some compromise. And so the number before you represents a compromise at the total design costs that they undertook. I think there's been a sensitivity on things like this in the past, and I completely understand why. It puts the Finance Committee in a strange position, I would say. But the reality is that should this not be approved tonight, this project will continue, but we will have a shortfall of funding at the end of the project when it comes to actually providing the construction administration services, and I would be back at this time to make that request. So I hope that answers your question, although not totally. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess, it's one thing if a contractor comes and says, you know what, we're $1,000 over budget, we need to have a discussion. It's another to come at the end of it and say we're $39,000 or we're $40,000 over budget. Like, obviously, they had to be keeping track of these hours and the expenditures as they went along. I can't imagine that there was all of a sudden a $39,000 expenditure that hit at the very end, and then they said, oh, this has to be a cumulative, correct?
I'm sorry. I didn't know
So
if you-
I guess I'm frustrated because I don't understand why. I don't understand why this is coming now.
So I can respond, but I think my response will be similar to what I said before. This number was not presented to us during the time that this delay was actually taking place, to be totally honest, Alderman Clemmons. And to your point, I don't know if they were tabulating this number behind the scenes or if they tabulated this number at a later time and chose to approach the city. That part is not clear to me. I'll admit that I'm not happy with the approach that was used by them here, but the relationship has been a very productive one to date. We ultimately have been successful in achieving the work product that was required. And there comes a point in a contract of this nature where we do have a decision, and that is, do we proceed with making an adjustment like this and trying to proceed in a partnership, or do we simply say we're not willing to pay for those costs? And I will admit that my choice at this time is to try to bring this request forward to you. I want to say that should the Finance Committee not approve this evening, the project will not stop. What it will do is it will simply shift the conversation to a later point in the project. And I would tell you if I was not willing to accept that. I will accept that. I mean, if I have to, I will go to them and say, look, we need to have this conversation at a later time. My goal is to address it now so that we didn't force that conversation when the work was already completed at the end.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this company, their work with us is not finished. They're going to continue on managing this throughout the entire.
Yes, Alderman Clemmons. We've actually had a relationship with them, believe it or not, for 4 years when this project was sort of stopped and started. But yes, they are on board to provide the construction administration services and then also run the bid process as well. And admittedly, this is the first time throughout that relationship that they have come to us with a request like this. So it's been great to date. This was the first time that they've represented that they've gone above and beyond a scope of work that was proposed. And the delay was not insubstantial. It was a 4-month delay based on these factors, and that's why I brought it forward to you.
So I can respect that the work was done. I can respect the fact that it costs what it costs. What I am frustrated by is the fact that the conversation didn't happen before the overrun, right? Or $1,000 after, you know? To me, that's, I have to question the motives there of what this company was doing. And it's frustrating to me to hear you say as well that the money exists in the budget as it exists, and if we reject it here, you'll pay it anyway. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I'm glad you said that. So I'm not saying that we're going to pay these outstanding costs. What I think it forces is Arcadis will come to us later in the project to potentially say that other services are over budget. I don't think they would do that, but I think it could happen. If the Finance Committee does not approve this request, I'm going to tell them I'm not paying this bill. And that's fine. Like, it truly is. I'm not just saying that. It is fully within the city's rights to choose to reject this cost. I don't know how they will react to that, but we are absolutely within our rights. It will be challenging, but we'll get through it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess where I come down on this is I'd like to hear from them and get some assurances that they're not going to run over budget if we approve this. Because what I don't want to see happen is we approve this, and then a year from now or whenever, here's another 40 grand that we didn't expect.
Yep.
And the Finance Committee in Nashville just rubber stamp and approve it. I want assurances from the company that this is a one-time thing and that they are keeping better accounting of what's going forward. So I don't want to stifle debate, but I think my motion will be to table it unless somebody else has.
Alderman Govea.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head on that one. I think, I mean, this is a big hunk of cash, and the fact you're coming to us now when you hit almost 40 grand instead of coming to us when you're 5, 10, I don't know. It just doesn't seem right to me. I don't really agree with doing business that way, of just hitting people with rather large fees. And to the point that was just made, fine, I'll do it once. If you truly say this was a mistake, yeah, we're doing it once. But I mean, if you come back to us in a year, 2 years, and we're trying to build a relationship with this company, and the relationship is, well, we're always going to be hit for 40, 50 grand more than what we bargained for every time, then I don't know. That puts it on the rocks for me as well.
Okay.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. All of these overruns and overages are from our side of the contract, is that correct? When I'm saying our side, meaning that it wasn't their fault. They didn't do anything to do it. So you said there were some state issues with that. So there aren't any, is that correct, or are there?
I think I mean, that could be argued. I mean, the city could have been more clear in its design direction, but it's a design project. Those
Okay.
things are iterative in nature. I don't think we could have said exactly what we wanted to see with the first
Okay.
design. So, no, I think certainly the city played a role in some of the delays, but they were natural delays attributable to the design process that just happened. So I hope I'm giving you an answer, but I don't think we were at fault specifically for anything. They were natural delays that took place. But they were substantial in nature in some cases, based on the city not getting back immediately on this element versus that element. There was some delay there.
Follow up? Mr. Mayor, follow up?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. So just kind of playing off that then, to what my colleagues have said then, if that being the case, is it common practice when we have design contracts, so we kind of go back and forth? They give us some idea, and then we say, oh, now that I see this, I would rather kind of move these chess pieces around. And in those cases, are there ever costs additional costs?
There absolutely are. To be clear here, the city's initial direction was to have one large thematic element on the site.
Right.
And ultimately, when we saw a design with that included, we were shocked by what it looked like because it dominated the entire area. And it set a theme that we were not comfortable with. And so we went back and said, try something else, but what exactly we want, we can't tell you exactly what we want. Here's another theme. So these things are natural, no question, but we changed direction several times, and Director McCormick and I accepted that could be problematic, but it resulted in things getting moved around the site. I would argue that's a natural part of the process, right? And we had great feedback from the public. We had done several public sessions over the years, and yeah, it's natural, it happens.
Well, was the extra money caused by the fact that the city asked them to change direction?
Part of it was, Mayor. There were really, as I said, 6 different pieces that contributed to it. But yes, the city's design direction.
We reduced that to 1 or 2, or is it really? It's hard to follow 6 reasons. Yes.
So it's one of the components, or one of the contributing factors, was the city's design direction. Yes.
Just one quick.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. This will be my last one. The delays that were caused by the state and so on, are there true expenses to those? I know there's sometimes work stoppage costs that we have to pay when construction is happening and we have to put a hold on it. We have to pay a daily cost for that. Are there work stoppage costs in design when they have to be on hold?
So yes, absolutely, and there were more direct expenses relative to adjustments that need to be made to the ADS work plan, resulted in changes to the design. But again, some of those are natural, right? When you're going through a permitting process, you have to assume that changes will happen as a result of the regulating agencies. In this case, we're the ones subject to the changes. We're not the regulating agency, so we know that. Again, there were assumptions made as to how quickly that process would move, and those assumptions were not correct. So when that process took, 12 weeks longer or however many weeks longer, no question there were costs. And it was more than just mobilization and demobilization. It was additional iterations of documents that had to be produced. Absolutely. And to be clear, despite the fact that we were not presented with a number, I said, keep working. We were not told that we were going over budget, but I said, keep working. And I think Alderman Clemens is going to comment on that in a second. And that communication was not good. But yes, that is typical that we are told we are going over budget, and there was no critical moment where that happened. I think there was a reliance on a relationship, and perhaps that reliance was, I don't want to say exploited because I really don't think that was the case, but I think that was relied on where maybe it shouldn't have been.
Okay, so I do understand the cost, but I agree with my colleagues in that they should have been more forthcoming in their wanting of additional funds as it was happening. So, thank you. Mr.
Alderman Clemens.
Yeah, and I want it to be clear too, that I don't expect the city, you guys, the staff, to have to constantly ask somebody that we're working with, are we over budget? Like, come on, they're supposed to be,
Yeah.
they should have told us. So, again, I think I understand the delays, I understand that these are probably real costs, all that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to get something in writing from them explaining it. And so with that, I'm going to make a motion to table.
All right, motion is to table. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and I presume Mr. Sullivan will come back with an answer.
That is correct.
All right, next item is a communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. Alderman Govea.
All right. In regard to administrative consulting services in the amount not to exceed $43,395, funded from Home ARP 53 Professional Technical Services, make a motion to accept, place on file, and approve a contract amendment with Metric Consulting LLC to support the implementation of Home ARP funds in the affordable housing projects across the city of Nashua, not to exceed $43,395. Funding will be through Department 184 Urban Programs Fund, Home ARP 53 Professional Technical Services.
Good evening, committee members. Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. This is a far more simple request, I think. This one is to provide what are referred to as environmental review services. Environmental reviews are a very specific HUD process where when we're investing HUD dollars, in this case home ARP monies, each property or project needs to be reviewed to ensure there's no adverse environmental impact. Typically, we perform these environmental reviews ourselves. We're actually very unique in that way as a city, that we don't contract this work out. But because of the unique reporting requirements of home ARP and frankly just the capacity to conduct these more substantial reviews, we are proposing to contract with Metric Consulting, who is actually the administrative consultant for our home ARP grant anyway. They provide these services, and they're proposing to provide 3 reviews at the cost of $43,395. These are something, because they're a certain level of environmental review, this is not something that we do customarily. It would take a significant amount of training for our team to be ready to actually do this. And again, this funding is somewhat unique. And so we'd like to work with Metric to do these review services. Not that you would have seen this in the documents, but there are going to be a few things that city staff do take on ourselves, but the bulk of the coordination with other federal entities and preparation of the necessary documents, Metric is going to take on all of that, and we're going to get to work, frankly, tomorrow, should this contract be executed tonight, as we have 3 really great projects proposed by Marguerite's, Harbor Care, and of course, Gateways that are waiting to be funded. And so we're excited to get to work on those. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
New business resolutions or ordinances, we have none. Table in committee, there isn't anything. Record of expenditures, Alderman Govea.
I move that the Finance Committee has complied with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period of August 29, 2025 to September 11, 2025.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. General discussion. Any general discussion? Public comment. Any member of the public want to speak to the committee? There's no one here and no one coming forward. Remarks by Alderman. Alderwoman Klee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to wish a dear friend who is in the hospital, a dear friend to all of us who's in the hospital tonight. I wish her well, and she is having another procedure tomorrow, so good luck.
All right. Anyone else? All right. Alderwoman Klee.
I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, and the meeting is adjourned at 7:33 p.m.